Donald Trump. Dangerous territory for a YouTube golf video. But just before I go on, this is a video on how Donald Trump's golf swing could be way more powerful. All right, this is going to be zero politics at all. No doubt a massive argument's going to ensue in the comment section. But this is purely about the golf swing of Donald Trump, and he does quite a lot of things which I think a lot of amateurs also do. So there's going to be a few key takeaways, ways that you could hit the golf ball further if you fall into some of the same traps that Donald does. Okay, that's all it is. And if you're fairly new to golf or you haven't played golf at all, I'm going to try to make this video interesting for you. So let's look at Donald from a couple angles. Let's look at his golf swing from a couple angles. All right, so we got Donald down the line, and the reason that we're choosing this swing because it's not a perfect angle. Usually you would want sort of his hand and the target to be in line to get the proper angles. But this is probably one of the better quality videos that we got of Donald online. We've also got a front-on view in a minute coming, which is very telling. Firstly, let's get into setup. Posture looks pretty good. He's got quite a funky little waggle going on here just before he gets into it. Bit of a preset. Nothing wrong with that. As I said, this is slightly inside the line if we're looking back, but this is the first thing that Donald does, which is quite interesting. So the club gets drawn inside quite noticeably. So usually you'd like to see this club head stay sort of like outside his hands for a lot longer, but he really drags this club around himself. The face opens. All right, so it's an interesting start to the golf swing. From there, this is the top of the backswing. And that's pretty short, to be honest. Usually you get people's left arms going up there. I'm trying to usually get the golf club towards parallel, but this may be some, mobility problems. I don't know, Donald's medical history. And then from there, everything sort of moves at the same speed. So the hips, the shoulders, the arms. He actually drops this thing down in a fairly decent position. And the club face, as we can see here, remains pretty passive through the golf ball. So I think Donald can get it round. He's a keen golfer. He can play. So there is a couple good things with his golf swing. Firstly, it looks fairly repeatable. He gets it in a pretty good position on the way down. It's on plane. He's lacking in power, and I'll explain why in a minute, and there's going to be a big takeaway for you guys that are struggling with power. But the club face control seems pretty good. It's quite stable. So the club face isn't going like this, and I'll explain a bit more in person in a second, but the club face is under control. All right, now we're going to look at a different view. So we usually have a front-on view, but we're actually going to go a back-on view. So we're looking at Donald from behind. There's one thing he does which is quite interesting. It's the reason that his backswing's quite short, and it's a reason for him to not produce as much power as he could potentially produce. Because he seems like quite a big guy, but he's really not using his body, his physique, and I feel like he's really missing another lever which would gain him some clubhead speed. So look at where his red hat, and watch where it goes in the backswing. So it goes down and it goes away. It goes away quite a lot in the backswing, and you can see a spine angle here. So usually you'd like to stay fairly central over the ball, if not get slightly behind it. But Donald, as you can see, gets a long way off of it in that direction. Now from there, he does sort of get himself back on top of the golf ball, and he's got quite a nice extension on the way through, which, it's always a good move, getting the body extending through the ball. But now you've seen it from two angles, I'm going to explain what I would do with Donald Trump's golf swing to get him way more powerful on the golf course, all right? Just to put that out there. So to explain what I just said, what I see with Donald is setup, posture, everything looks pretty good, pretty standard. He gets the club working inside early, and the face also opens. So when you're into this position here where the club is parallel, you really want to see a square position, the leading edge, that angle, sort of correlates with the spine angle. Now his would be here. In fact, now you usually get people that have an open face where it's pointing up, but his almost goes the other way. So it's pointing that way, so he gets it very open and very inside his hands. Is very short. There's also another move that I'll show you front on in a second. Whenever people get the face open early, I think it really impedes them being able to produce a lot of power, because if you get that face open early, you're always going to need to get it back to square during the golf swing. And when you're trying to get it back to square, it's very hard to apply a lot of force and also give yourself time to get the club face square again. So I don't really like golfers getting that club face super open early. Donald's not a long hitter. It seems like he gets it open inside, it's very short, and he just settles for getting it back on plane and extending through. And he looks like quite a reasonable golfer, someone who's fairly consistent from what I've seen. To go with the rolling, you get a lot of this. All right, so his spine angle goes from this to this. Now there's one big lever that he's really missing out on. So it's like an extra gear that he could have to produce more power, to increase the length of his golf swing, because his arc is very short. So he could produce a lot more power if he started extending his spine. So his spine goes from this to this. So from this view, it goes like this. So golfers that extend their spine get here, and then their spine extends. And that provides more shoulder turn, more turn throughout the upper body, a longer arc, more potential power. Whereas Donald actually doesn't extend his spine at all. So if Donald were to start extending his spine, and I'll show you what it looks like from the position he's in, it would look like that. Now I said I didn't know his medical history and potential injuries that he has. There's potential that he's had a back injury and he's got like a fuse towards the top and he's not got much mobility at all, so that's all he can do. But if that wasn't the case, I would start trying to get Donald's spine extending. So imagine there was something on my back, almost like an arrow like this. So his arrow goes like this way. He would want to feel like the arrow pointing away from his back would be facing towards the target, and if he could, under the target. And what that would do, that would get his spine extending and a much bigger turn, much bigger swing arc, more potential power. To go with that early thing that he does, which is face very much open. And like I said, when you get that face open, because you're trying to square that face up, it's hard to generate a lot of power and also give yourself time to square that blade up. So that's two things I would say. Donald Trump, if you're watching this, you can send me, PayPal. But two things I would say, right? Get that club face more square early and feel like it's more outside the hands. All right, so don't get it open and inside, but feel like the club face almost points at the floor for as long as possible. And then if your body allows you, try and feel like that part of your back points towards the target, if possible, under the target. So you get a nice full turn and more potential power. That's two things I see from Donald Trump's golf swing. A lot of people asked me to do this video when I said, who do you want to see? Please let me know in the comments which famous person, which golfer, whoever, who do you want to see next? Who do you want to see a swing analysis of? And if this has helped in any way, then leave me a comment. And just leave me a comment to go with all the other arguments in the comment section about, the usual stuff. Cheers for watching.